guys, hi, how's it going? How y'all doing today? Hopefully today finds you well. Today I am doing my top picks for summer palettes. These are the palettes that I am going to choose to pull for, in addition to like my palette review palette or my build your own palette, any of the other palettes that I have in the running for the projects that I have going. These are the palettes that I want to pull from during the summertime for spontaneous looks here or there, or just if I need a break from the palettes that I am using in my projects, and I hope that you're here for it. In this, I am also going to go through the palettes that I pulled in for spring and let you know where we sit with those palettes. So if that sounds like something you're interested in watching, please keep on watching. For those of you new here, hi, my name is Donna. I'm a lover of all things high-end, colorful beauty and self-care, and ultimately, this is my self-care. This is where I come to talk about the good, the bad, the ugly, all the things coming into my collection, leaving my collection, and I hope that you're here for it. And if you are, please subscribe. I'm kind of a kick in the pants to hang out with, and I'm trying to get to 2K this year, and I know we got it in us to do it, so I hope that you want to stick around, that you think this video was awesome, or that I am awesome, and that you'll want to stick around and subscribe before you go. That all being said, let's go ahead and roll into this video where I'll be going through the palettes that I pulled for spring and letting you know where we stand in those, and the palettes that I have that I will be pulling for summer. I just had some wild tangent on my hair. I'm going to spare you. I'll put it in at the end as a blooper reel because it's not what we're here to talk about today, even though it's driving me nuts. Today, we're talking about the palettes that I pulled in for spring and the palettes that I have sitting next to me that I plan to pull for in summer. So it is summertime, even though it doesn't feel like it's summertime here. Our first day of summer here was 53 degrees and so cold. And today I think it's probably in the 60s, but it's still very cold. I think it's hit like above 70 twice since summer began here, which is, I guess, okay, because it's only been a short period of time, but it is aggravating when you come from one side of the state where it is so hot during the summer to another side of the state where it's like a completely different universe. It's aggravating. Anyways, let's walk through the palettes that I pulled in for spring. So the first one that I want to talk about is this one. This is the Mini Retro palette, and this is a palette that I pulled in for springtime use, and this palette I was able to complete. No Pan Left Behind. I did that actually through deck of panning. It is a palette that I pulled in for No Pan Left Behind product in my deck of panning, so I was able to do that. Then I have this one here, which is the Morphe 9P Petal Passion. I did not use this one, No Pan Left Behind, but I did pull in this color and this color into a couple of eye looks that I did for, or tried to do for my Project Level Up, where I was utilizing my Huda Beauty Ruby Obsessions palette, the first palette that I used. And these really helped me complete a look, so I did pull those in. The idea of me pulling these in here is maybe to use more than 2 shades, but I have to be honest with you, a lot of these didn't get used. No Pan Left Behind, a lot of them only got 1 or 2 shades used out of them, and I'm not holding myself accountable to utilizing these palettes in No Pan Left Behind. They're just easy peasy, colorful, you know, palettes to pull from during this time of year. That said, I also used this one, which is the FunSize palette by Sugarpill, and for this palette I pulled these two into actually this eye look, so I was able to get the final use out of this palette in this eye look today. But I also pulled this right into one of those level up eye looks that I did for the Ruby Obsessions palette, and I pulled this one into a blue eye look that I did utilizing my Build Your Own palette last Build Your Own palette, because I had a blue in there that wasn't quite working out for me, so I used this to help myself blend that blue out. So I did get 4 shadows in this palette used this last season. I had also pulled in the Carli Bybel palette. I only used 2 shades out of this palette. I used this one and I used this one. I actually use this one quite a bit as a brow bone color. It is in my brow bone today, but it isn't the first time that I used it today. And I used this one a couple days ago in a look that I did using my current palette review palette, which is the Question Beauty Land and Sea palette. I used it to help me blend out the brown. I've got hair all over me because I'm messing with my hair. So I did get some use out of this one. I did not get any use out of this one, and I actually thought I might need to declutter this palette. I cannot remember the last time I used this palette. I don't know why I opened it. You can see right through the thing, but I can't remember the last time I used this palette. And Viseart satiny shimmers are just not my favorite to use. So I wish these like came out because mine don't. The newer palettes do. They have the divot in there. You can pull the pans out. Mine don't. They're older. This has been in my collection since I first started YouTube, so like 7, 8 years ago almost. It was about 7 years ago at this time. I just don't know that I'm going to get a whole hell of a lot of use out of this palette, especially if I couldn't bring it up to myself to pull for that palette. Every time I looked at it, I was like, I have better shimmers than that, so I'm going to use a different palette today. So like, does that tell me what I need to know about decluttering that palette? This one, the Garden of Juvias, I also didn't get any use out of. This is what this one looks like. Listen, I think that this is a beautiful palette. It is a wonderful palette for the shimmers. I also do think that the mattes do well, but I'm not 100% sold on a pastel matte, right? We all know this around here, but I do love the shimmers, and I'm kind of sad and disappointed that I didn't get use out of it, but I am not a person that just pulls for palettes because they remind me of a season. I'm not a seasonal palette user. So I don't necessarily, this isn't going to go into my collection and never get used until next spring. Again, right? This isn't my last ditch effort. I'm trying to get these palettes used. I'm just sad that I forgot that this was in there and didn't get any use out of it. I have this one that I also didn't see any use out of this last season, even though I pulled it in. This is the Sydney Grace in Mels Memory. These are single shadows. You could buy them in a single shadow bundle. I put them into, this is in my inventory as a palette, not as singles, and I didn't see any use out of this. I also didn't see any use out of this palette, which again makes me kind of sad, but again, I don't think it's going to deter me from using it any other season. I do think that this palette kind of falls in between like spring and fall, so I might roll this back in the fall time, but it's going to go back into my collection for now as a palette that hasn't been touched this year. And that's also why I do these, is to try and get some action out of the palettes that I have in my collection. This one I didn't get any usage out of either, and I'm very disappointed in myself, but I do think that I'm going to roll this in or keep it in rotation for summertime, because I do think that a lot of these, especially these bright greens and this row here, really scream summer to me. So I am going to keep this in for summer. I am also going to keep this one in for summer, which is the Blend Bunny Lure. I feel like it's got summer vibes as well. It's very mermaidy, and mermaids remind me of water, and water reminds me of summer. I know that's a long way to get around to it, but I do think that I can keep this one also in rotation for summertime, and that will round out my summer palettes to 15 versus like an odd 13. So with that said, of the 10 palettes that I pulled in for spring, I did get use out of 4 of those palettes, and I didn't get use out of 6 of those palettes, these 4 including the ones that I am keeping in rotation, but I will be keeping 2 of them in rotation for summertime. So, I mean, I can't say that I'm mad at myself, because at least I did get, you know, partial usage out of, or complete usage out of 4 of the palettes that I had back there. What makes me sad though is the only reason why this one got a full amount of usage is because I rolled it into a project, and I don't want to rely on my projects to fuel the usage that I get on my eyeshadow palettes. And I want to like reach for my eyeshadow palettes because I love them so much, and not feel like I have to because they're in a project. That said, let's talk about the palettes that I'm rolling in for summer. So summer to me means bright and poppy and maybe summer is the time of year for neons. It's also the time of year for like bronzy eye looks, but I have to be honest with you, I do steer more into the color realm. So I really did rely on that bright and poppy kind of thought process when I'm thinking about the palettes that I'm pulling in, because I do think that a neutral eyeshadow palette is bound to be a palette that I use anyways, occasionally. So I don't necessarily need to pull them into this project. So we're starting off with 2 palettes rolling over from the spring palettes that we pulled. And I have 13 other palettes to talk to you about. The first one being this one. This is the Natasha Denona Sunrise palette. This one actually is just such a beautiful eyeshadow palette. I love the sunrisey eyes that you get out of this. It's got such a beautiful like color story over here, and this can lean very, very bronzy, but can also lean very, very colorful. So I really love this for the summertime. Again, I'm going to stress, I am not a person that thinks of palettes just seasonally. I think about all the palettes that are, and I'll wear any color eye look any time of year. This is kind of a wintry eye if you ask me, but here it is, summertime, and I'm wearing it. I don't care what color story a palette has, but there are just certain color stories that remind me of certain seasons of the year. The next one I have is a Juvia's Place palette. It is Juvia's Place Zulu palette, and this is what it looks like. It's just very bright and poppy. It kind of reminds me of like ocean water, but also like a sunrise, but also like a circus. And all things of that nature remind me of summer. So this is a palette that I'm going to get some use out of this summer. I also pulled in Kaleidos Escape Pod. This was a favorite palette for me, and I think that this one suits summer to a T with the neons at the top. We also have some really nice neutral tones down here that can get very bronzy. So again, we've got the pops of color, and we've also got the bronze, the 2 things that really remind me of summertime. So I will get some use out of this palette this summer as well. I think that that's a palette that I could actually utilize the Sugarpill FunSize palette for as well, because a lot of these shades up here on top, the FunSize palette has really good blending out shades that would go with those perfectly, but I'm not going to leave that one in rotation. I just might pull it if I need to. I have 3 smaller palettes. So the first one is going to be this one, which is the Mini Pro Pigment Palette Volume 2 from the Norvina collection. This one just is summer in a nutshell, in my humble opinion. It reminds me, I mean, even the component, right, has what I interpret as a beach with some water and the sunrise coming up. So that's what this palette reminds me of. So I couldn't do this video without having it in. And I also have my Midas Cosmetics Artistry palette volume 1, because it is basically pastels on crack or mid-tone neons, in my humble opinion. This is a beautiful like multi-chrome, so I had to bring that palette in as well. And I think these 2 specifically would be really easy to get through because they're, you know, small and don't have very many shadows. This one as well, there's only 8 shadows in this one. This is the Viseart Petite Pro Soleil, and again, just a really beautiful, I need to think of different adjectives, you guys. Just a really gorgeous, summery sunset, sunrise, sunset. I think it could go either way. So I'm pulling that in. The only thing that bothers me about this palette is this purple is actually a really, really awful purple. So I would probably have to pull in another purple from another one of the palettes that I have pulled in here to finish or complete a look using that palette. But I do think that those 3 palettes that I just showed you, I could no pan left behind in 1 or 2 looks per palette. So love bringing in those. I'm also bringing in the Odens Planet Spirit palette. This one is in collaboration with Betty Jean from Betty Bean here on YouTube, and this is a perfect summer color story, in my humble opinion. I love the tealy greens in here, the oranges, the bright pinks, and every matte in this palette has a subsequent shimmer. I could do this palette in probably 1 or 2 looks as well, but I might just, you know, let it kind of go the flow, because there's a lot of colors in here that would also subsequently work with any of the other palettes that I have pulled in. And that's really what I'm going after with the palettes that I have pulled in. Like, they could all kind of meander with each other and really create some beautiful eye looks. There's not a whole lot of differentiation between the palettes though. They're all just very like bright and poppy and in your face, and that might come to bite me in the ass. It might. The next one I have pulled is the Alyssa Edwards palette. I got some use out of this palette earlier this year. It is tracked on my No Pan Left Behind tracker as a partial palette that I use for 1 or 2 shadows. I cannot remember which ones now at this point in time, but I do think that this is also a perfect summertime palette. Just very bright. I love the yellow in this palette. I love this blue in this palette as well. I love that we have some bronzy eye looks that I can see coming from this palette. So I think that this will make for a perfect summertime eyeshadow palette as well. The Glamlite paint palette. Now, I got rid of the big one of these palettes and gave it to my daughter because she is an artiste, and I thought that she would enjoy it, and I didn't love it as much. This one is starting, you can see the oil from this shade specifically is starting to just kind of leak out everywhere. This one also has a pan in it, which I didn't know it had until I was doing my declutter, my palette declutter, and saw that pan in here. But I do think that this will be a really easy palette for me to use this summer. Because I love these tertiary colors. Like, I'm not a primary color lover, but I do love these tertiary colors, and I can see, you know, 3 or 4 beautiful eye looks coming straight from this palette. I have Lunar Beauty's Strawberry Dream. This is one of my favorite palettes, and a lot of the eye looks that I have as the banner of my YouTube channel were made from this palette, and this is what she looks like on the inside. I do think that I can get a lot of like Cotton Candy Sky kind of looks from this palette, and Cotton Candy Skies remind me of summer a whole lot. I love everything about this palette, minus maybe this gold shade right here. But I just am not a fan of gold, so that is why. But this palette is a beautiful palette. The mattes are beautiful mattes. They blend out so easily. The shimmers in here, there's a shimmer for every single color in this palette. There's deep tones, there's light tones. It's just a beautiful palette overall. And like I said, almost every eye look on the banner of my YouTube channel comes from this eyeshadow palette. So there's that. I also pulled in the Violet Voss Flamingo palette. I don't feel like it's a summer without pulling this palette in. And what I like most about this palette is it is very summery, but from a subdued perspective. So I've got a whole lot of bright going on in this pile right next to me. This is going to give me a little bit more of that mid-tone or even those lighter tones that I'm going to need to complete a look. I also love that it has a straight up black in here and a kind of cream off white in here so that I can deepen up or lighten anything. I bet you I'll get a lot of use out of those because not a lot of the palettes that I have pulled in thus far have a black or a white in them. So especially not matte ones. Well, matte black maybe, but not a matte white. I also have Blend Bunny Surge. So this is the original, like, oh, this is definitely kind of a summer palette, but I also think that this is very fall. So here's what I'm going to say about this one. I really want to use these shadows down here, these, you know, 12 shadows down here this summer, and the rest of this could probably stick around till fall because in my mind, this is a very grungy eyeshadow palette with a neon kicker, and I want that neon kicker during summer, but I don't necessarily want that neon kicker during fall when I would be using the rest of the palette for the grungy eye looks that I know I can get from this palette. But I'm going to promise myself that I'm going to use these last 2 rows down here during the summertime and keep this around. So this one will be rolling into my fall palettes for the top 3 rows as well. And then last but not least, I'm pulling in Glamlite Cake. Now I went back and forth with this one, but I do feel like this is a summertime eyeshadow palette because of, oh, I just stuck my finger in that green. Because of the color story on here, I feel like this is a lot more primary than I like to go with my eyeshadows, but there is a lot of also tertiary color story here that I can play off of with some of those primary colors and play off of it with some of the other palettes that I am also bringing in. So I think now is a good time to bring this in, and I would love to get some use out of this palette because I really don't think I've used this palette in years. I think it's been at least 2 years at this point since the last time I used that palette. I pulled it in to my collection, I think like 3 years ago. So for something to be pulled in 3 years ago and not have use on it for the last 2 years, like, this is me really thinking about what needs to land in my declutter next year, right, of my palettes. Like, if I'm not using these, I really need to, I really shouldn't be holding on to them. Let's just be honest. So with that said, I do have 15, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. I do have 15 eyeshadow palettes that I'm bringing in to use for summer. The worst part of this is that I have a very small, like, container to put my, like, palette, my seasonal palettes into back behind me in the closet. So I'm going to need to figure, I think I have 2 containers in there. So I'm going to need to empty the other container so that I can use it for both. I can use both of them for these palettes because these palettes are rather large. That said, I'd love to hear what you're using. If you have a video up, let me know. I'd love to come and watch it. And other than that, that's all I got for you today. I hope that you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know how your summer is going. Is it hot where you are? Because I'm sure you guys have seen, like, I'm still wearing sweaters and sweatshirts and long pants and fleece-lined pants because it's so cold. It's so cold. I put some, these are like metal wreaths that my sister gave me from her shop. So I put those up, and they're supposed to be all cattywampus like that. I've got some LED lights that I'm going to put back there too if I can figure out how to hang them. So there's that. I'm trying to make the background a little more interesting than it has been. Let me know what you guys think about it. That said, thank you guys so much for joining me today. I appreciate all of you for being here. I hope that you and yours are doing well. I hope that you are all safe and healthy and getting along as best that you can. I hope that you're all loving each other, being kind humans, and living your best life. And until next time, bye, friends.
I think my hair is kind of wild right now. It's actually kind of driving me nuts. I put some stuff in it and like powder, texturizer, and it's like just laying flat right here and not doing what I want it to outside of that. I mean, look at this. I think it's just getting too long. I need it cut. Brooks, if you're watching, I need a haircut. My best friend Sasha was just here, and she's a stylist. Like, I should have had her cut it. Okay. Look at this. This whole side is just like flat. Yep. What is going on? What is going on? Okay. Oh, stop touching it. Stop touching it. You're ridiculous, Donna.